On October the 31st, 1517, Martin Luther posted 95 big questions which he believed faced the church of his day to a local church door in Wittenberg, Germany. 500 years later, I decided to post 95 new questions, one a week, to the web, questions which I believe the church must face in the 21st century. Love God, love others, love yourself. That, Jesus said, was the very heart of his teaching. And last week we began to explore that second piece of it, love others. Who is my neighbour? Who am I supposed to love? Jesus gets asked. In response, he tells his famous story, retold again by Luke in chapter 10 of the Gospel he wrote, the tale of the Good Samaritan. The Jews hated Samaritans. They really hated Samaritans, all Samaritans. On any orthodox reading of their scriptures, it was very clear to them that the people of Samaria were persona non grata. In the Israel of Jesus' day, the S word had become a term of contempt and abuse. This tension, which sometimes boiled over into outright hostility between the geographical next-door neighbours, went back for centuries. Samaria had once been part of the old united kingdom of Israel under King David and Solomon his son. But that was before the 10 northern tribes or counties of the country proclaimed self-rule, separating from what they perceived to be the rich south and their corrupt royal family. Following this acrimonious split, the northerners eventually built themselves a new capital city, a brand new city, which they named Samaria. However, when the superpower of Assyria overran them around 720 years before Jesus was born, although some of the people, the leaders, were taken into captivity, many others were left behind, and the king of Assyria deliberately imported people from surrounding countries to live alongside them. Slowly, of course, these foreigners intermarried with the Israelite population that was still there. The whole country eventually became known as Samaria, and over time its people, now neither fully Hebrew or fully Gentile, became known as Samaritans. By Jesus' day, both Jewish and Samaritan religious leaders taught their people that it was absolutely off limits to have any contact at all with the opposite group. And as far as the Jewish leaders were concerned, the Samaritans were nothing more than an apostate group of heretics who practiced a corrupt and corrupting faith and who'd been rejected by God. It was into this context that Jesus introduced a very Jewish audience to his story of an abandoned and vulnerable Jew, ignored by 2 proud members of the Jewish establishment, but eventually helped out by the despised Samaritan traveller, who turns out to be the hero of the day. It did not make for easy listening. And even worse was Jesus' challenge to go and do likewise, to imitate the behaviour and response of a hated Samaritan. The sting in the tale is, of course, simply this. In 20 centuries, very little has changed, except for the fact that we've now learned to pay lip service to Jesus' words, love your enemy. In the 21st century, our behaviour remains exactly the same as that of Jesus' original audience. So today, you can't help think that Jesus might have told a similar story, but this time in terms of Protestants and Catholics, or Hutus and Tutsis, or Sunnis and Shias, or Jews and Palestinians, or Democrats and Republicans, or Leavers and Remainers, or evangelicals and the LGBT community, or conservatives and progressives. But the punchline remains the same. The person who acts with generosity, with grace and mercy towards someone on the other side of the fence is the one who's a true neighbour. the only one who truly understands the teaching of Christ to love others as you love yourself. We're always imprisoned by our exclusion of those who are different from us. We're never released by it. Besides anything else, we need them for our own wholeness. For it's only as we build bridges with those who don't see life our way that we begin to confront and to deal with the hidden and ugly parts of our own souls. Our until that moment unrecognised prejudice, our unconscious bias, and our hidden fear. Without those who are different to us, we're diminished. But through our inclusion and acceptance of them, our story becomes richer and deeper than it would have otherwise been. We're stretched, renewed, and made more whole. The Quakers have a beautiful saying. An enemy, they say, is simply a friend whose story you have not yet heard. So I'll leave you with these questions. In a world where we can be friends with whoever we like, why do we choose only to befriend those who are strikingly similar to us in opinion, outlook, ethnicity, and income? And in a world where we can believe in any God we like, why do we choose to believe in a protectionist, tribal, exclusive God who's made in our image and confined to the limits of our imagination, a deity who, in the end, is little more than a projection of our own fears and prejudices?